Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be looking at how color and light can impact emotions, especially in event design. Ever walk into a place and just instantly feel more energized, more relaxed?
Yeah.
It turns out there's actually some science to it, which we're going to unpack today.
It's fascinating, right? The stuff we're looking at, these excerpts from exposing how color affects our emotions in event design and the IMAX Plus PSAV Purposeful Meetings white paper,
Mm.
it suggests some pretty interesting things. Like, did you know that using the color red can actually lead to more donations at fundraising events? Or
Wow.
that blue lighting can help people communicate better?
That's powerful stuff. I know as event planners, a lot of times we just go with our gut when it comes to design choices. And I'm really curious to learn how we can use these scientific principles and create even more impactful experiences.
Yeah. And, it really all starts with this idea from neuroscience of how our surroundings actually affect us. And this field of environmental psychology, it's revealing that our brains are constantly taking in these cues from the environment, even when we don't realize it. So that means we can actually use these cues to shape the attendee experience.
Okay, so it's not just about pretty decorations. We're talking about creating an environment that almost primes people for a very specific experience.
Exactly. And in the source material, they actually talk about this concept called grounded cognition, which essentially means that our physical experiences, they can actually influence our thoughts and feelings.
Hmm.
For instance, like just holding a warm drink can make us feel warmer towards other people.
What?
Or how about this one? Sitting on soft furniture as
Hmm.
opposed to hard chairs can actually promote more flexible negotiation.
Oh, wow. That's wild. It's almost like our subconscious is playing a bigger role in our event experiences than we even realize.
Absolutely. And there's this model they talk about called SCARF. And this dives into how our brains react in social situations, and it kind of highlights 5 key domains: status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And when we feel threatened in any of these areas, like, let's say, a confusing layout or feeling excluded, our brain, it kind of goes into this defensive mode.
Yeah.
But when those needs are met, like a sense of belonging or control, we're much more likely to engage.
So as event planners, we can actually use this knowledge to create environments where people feel safe and comfortable and ready to connect.
Exactly. And once we have their attention, we need to keep them engaged, right? So that's where understanding these different types of attention comes in.
Okay, so we got their attention. What's next?
Well, we need to understand the 3 types of attention:
Hmm.
alerting, orienting, and executive. So imagine you're walking through a busy trade show floor. All the bright colors and the flashy displays, they're grabbing your orienting attention, right? You can't help but look. But to really get attendees invested, we need to tap into that executive attention. That's where the real engagement happens.
So it's not enough to just be visually stimulating. We need to offer something that makes people stop, think, and engage on a deeper level.
Exactly. Executive attention, that's where the magic happens, right? Meaningful interactions, valuable content, those aha moments that stick with someone long after the event is over.
So how do we actually design for that kind of engagement? Do certain colors really have that kind of power?
They really do. Let's dive into some of the psychology of color. Each color, it carries its own emotional weight. Like
Yeah.
red, for example, it's associated with passion, energy,
Yeah.
even increased libido, the source mentioned.
Okay, so maybe red lighting at a fundraising gala is not the best idea. I could see it working really well for a high energy product launch, though, maybe a sporting event.
You got it. That's a great example of how understanding this stuff, this color psychology, can help you tailor the atmosphere,
Yeah,
to what your goals are for your event.
I've heard.
Now, yellow's interesting. Often linked with optimism, hope. It's even used in color therapy sometimes to combat depression.
Really? So incorporating yellow into the registration area, maybe at a welcome reception could really set a positive tone from the start. It's almost like you're priming those attendees to feel happy and engaged.
You got it. You got it.
Yeah.
Exactly the idea. And then there's green. Green's naturally calming, right? It evokes a sense of growth, freshness. Although, interestingly, it's not the best choice when it comes to lighting.
Hmm.
The source points out that it can actually make skin tones look really washed out under stage lights.
Oh, that's a good tip. I'll have to keep that one in mind. So we've covered red, yellow, and green. What about blue?
Blue is a fascinating one, known for its calming effect, right?
Hmm.
But it also has a really surprising benefit. It can actually enhance communication.
Oh.
Yeah, The research suggests that blue environments can actually lead to more productive brainstorming sessions, problem solving, all that.
So if you're designing like a breakout session, a workshop, you know where that collaboration is key. Blue might be a good color to incorporate, almost like you're subtly nudging people to open up and share ideas.
Precisely,
Yeah.
precisely. But remember, it's not just about the colors themselves. The way we perceive color is heavily influenced by light,
Right.
which is actually often an overlooked aspect of design,
Hmm.
when you're thinking about an event.
Yeah, that's a good point. We focus so much on these color palettes and sometimes forget how much lighting can affect how those colors are perceived and ultimately how they make us feel.
It all comes down to light frequency. Light frequency dictates how we see color. Think of the visual spectrum, right? Ranging from red, the lowest frequency, to violet, the highest. So by understanding that, we can actually use lighting strategically to create these shifts in mood and energy throughout an event.
So you might use like bright, vibrant lighting during a product reveal, maybe a keynote speech to like build that excitement,
Yep.
and then shift to softer, warmer lighting during a networking session or a more
Yeah.
intimate dinner.
Exactly, exactly. Creating the right atmosphere for each moment. Bright light energizes, stimulates,
Mm.
while that dim light, it encourages relaxation in those deeper conversations.
Okay, this is all incredibly insightful, but I know our listeners are probably eager for some practical advice.
Yeah.
What are some like actionable things that event planners can actually do based on all of this science?
So the source material actually highlights a bunch of what they call design hacks, for lack of a better word,
Okay.
that are backed by this research. First one, this might seem counterintuitive, but it's crucial. Embrace open space.
Yeah.
Yeah, that clutter-free environment, it actually promotes engagement.
Interesting.
Less is more, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to helping attendees focus.
Makes sense. I know I've definitely been in spaces that are just too cluttered and I feel overwhelmed and distracted.
You got it. You got it. It even goes back to that scar-off model we talked about earlier, right?
Yeah.
That sense of spaciousness reduces those feelings of threat, increases the sense of autonomy, makes people feel more comfortable and engaged. Another key takeaway, variety, offer a mix of spaces within your event. Some people might crave a quiet zone, right, for focused work, while others thrive in those high-energy areas.
Oh, that's great. So it's like almost catering to different personalities and preferences.
Exactly. Exactly. Like a choose-your-own-adventure kind of thing.
I like that. Yeah.
And speaking of navigating an event, clear wayfinding, that's crucial too. Reduces stress, makes navigation intuitive. Instead of worrying about getting lost, attendees can focus on the actual content and making connections.
Oh, tell me about it. I've definitely been to some events where I spend more time trying to find the right room than actually absorbing the information.
Happens all the time, right?
Yeah.
So good wayfinding, that makes a huge difference. And never underestimate the power of nature. Integrating the outdoors, whether it's real plants, natural light, even just scenic projections, can help restore attention, create that calming environment.
I'm a big believer in that. Even just a small glimpse of greenery or some natural light can just completely change how I feel in a space.
It's that innate connection we have with nature, right?
Right.
And the source actually highlights this specific case study, the Flanders Meeting Convention Center in Antwerp. And what's unique about it is its integration with the Antwerp Zoo. Attendees can actually take breaks and stroll through this beautiful garden.
That's amazing. I've heard great things about that venue. That's a great example of bringing the outdoors in.
Exactly. And, in today's world, the tech-driven world that we live in, there are so many opportunities to integrate technology in ways that enhance the experience, too. Think video mapping, interactive displays, they add a whole new dimension to an event.
And we can't forget about scent. I've always been fascinated by scents, how scents like lavender or vanilla can just subtly influence our mood and behavior.
Absolutely. And the research even mentions that certain scents can actually promote relaxation and boost alertness.
This is really making me rethink everything I thought I knew about event design. It's not just about aesthetics. It's about creating this multi-sensory experience, one that really resonates with attendees.
You got it. And I think it's important to emphasize that we're not suggesting that you throw out your intuition
Right.
or your personal style. This is about giving you additional tools and insights that can help you take your event design to the next level.
So understanding the science and then using it to inform our creative choices, not dictate them.
Precisely. Every event is unique, and it calls for that tailored approach, right? But by understanding these principles, these underlying principles, you can create spaces that are not only beautiful, but also impactful. deeply impactful.
This has been an absolutely eye-opening deep dive. But before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
Think about your own workspace. Consider the colors, the lighting, the overall environment. Are those elements working together to support your focus, your productivity? Or could you make some small changes, based on what we've talked about today that might boost your own well-being, creativity?
Yeah, it's amazing how those principles can apply not just to big event spaces, but even to our everyday environments. Like, I'm already thinking I need to rearrange my desk and swap out that harsh overhead light for something softer, warmer. Right. It's those little tweaks that can make all the difference, and how we feel, how we function throughout the day. And it makes you realize that these design principles, they're not just for these big events. It can be any gathering, no matter how small, like a corporate training session. You can really set the stage for engagement and productivity just by being intentional about, the color, the lighting.
Instead of that typical dull conference room, fluorescent lights, beige walls, you could create a more stimulating environment with pops of color, natural light. Even think about the scent in the room.
Exactly. Imagine a training session on creative problem solving, held in a room with like bright, energizing colors, yellows, oranges, maybe even a citrus scent to kind of boost alertness. It would change the whole mood, energy of that session.
Yeah, that's a great example. Almost like you're priming those participants for creativity just by setting the right atmosphere.
Precisely. And even in a corporate setting, incorporating those elements of nature can make a big difference. Bringing in plants, using natural materials, or just having a view of nature can help reduce stress, improve focus.
Oh, yeah. I've definitely felt that when I'm working in a space with a lot of natural light, greenery. So much more calming and inspiring than being stuck in a windowless office.
Absolutely. Those little touches can have a big impact
hmm
on our well-being, productivity.
And speaking of those small touches, scent, even in these smaller gatherings.
We touched on it earlier, but I'm curious, how can scent be used strategically in those different settings? Do you have an example?
Sure, let's say you're facilitating a brainstorming session and you want to encourage creativity, you want people thinking outside the box, right?
Yeah.
You might consider diffusing a scent like cinnamon or rosemary, which have been shown to kind of stimulate brain activity, enhance cognitive function.
Wow, that's fascinating. Almost like you're giving their brains a little boost just with scent. It's pretty remarkable how much our senses actually influence our thoughts, our feelings, and behavior.
Uh-huh.
And the more we understand those connections, the more effectively we can design these experiences that really resonate with people.
This has been incredible. We covered so much: neuroscience, of environmental psychology, the nuances of color and light. I I feel like I have this whole new toolkit for creating impactful experiences.
Awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. And remember, there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
Right.
The beauty of event design is, it's about understanding the principles, trusting your intuition, experimenting, finding what works for you, for your audience.
Exactly. Embrace that creativity and don't be afraid to try new things.
Absolutely.
I think that's a great note to end on. But before we go, I want to challenge our listeners to put all this knowledge into practice.
I like it. What's the challenge?
Think about the next event you attend. Could be a big conference, a small workshop, even just a dinner party at a friend's house. Pay attention to the environment, the colors, the lighting, the layout, even the scent. Notice how those elements make you feel and ask yourself, are they contributing to a positive, engaging experience?
I love that. By becoming more aware of how our surroundings impact us, we can all become more conscious designers, of our own experiences.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe you'll be inspired to create events of your own that leave a lasting impact.
I hope so.
This has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
It was my pleasure.
And to our listeners, thank you for joining us for another deep dive. We hope you gained some valuable insights that you can apply not only to your events, but to your everyday lives as well. Until next time, keep exploring and keep creating.